The sun on planet Tarsus was cruel and bright. Jack's boots were cracked, his clothes dusty, and his stomach empty for 2 days. He had walked across the dry alien plains looking for work, food, or even a kind word. But most doors closed on him the moment they saw a human. Aliens didn't trust humans here, not after the war. Jack wasn't a soldier, though. He was just a builder, a worker, a man trying to survive. He stopped in front of a large stone house at the edge of the alien village. It looked old but strong, built with love and maybe pain. The garden was untended, the fence broken, and the windmill didn't turn anymore. Jack took a breath and knocked once, then twice, no answer. Just as he turned to leave, the door opened slowly. A tall alien woman stood there, her skin a soft blue, her eyes glowing silver. Her face was beautiful but cold. Like someone who had forgotten how to smile, Jack straightened his back, forced a polite tone, and said, "Ma'am, I'm not here to beg, but I can fix things, machines, fences, houses, just need food and a roof." The woman looked at him silently, her expression unreadable. Then she spoke, her voice calm but sharp. "I don't need a worker." Jack's shoulders dropped, disappointment sinking in. But before he could turn away, she added something strange, something that froze him in place. "I need a father," she said. Jack blinked, confused, thinking he had heard wrong. "A father?" he repeated. She stepped aside, pointing her chin toward the room behind her. Inside, hidden behind a curtain, was a small alien boy no older than 7. He peeked out with wide silver eyes, then quickly disappeared behind the fabric. "My son hasn't spoken since his father died," the woman said, her voice softer now. "I've tried everything. Hired teachers, doctors, even bots." She paused, then whispered, "But he needs something else, someone else." Jack stood frozen at the doorway, unsure what to say. He had come for a job, not to play father, not to open wounds from his own past. He looked again toward the curtain where the child had been. "I don't know anything about children," Jack said honestly. "I didn't ask for perfect," the woman replied. "Just present." The wind blew gently through the broken fence, carrying the smell of dust and dry flowers. Jack finally nodded. "I can stay one night," he said. "See if the boy even likes me." The woman stepped aside, allowing him in. "I'm Sarana," she said as he entered. "Jack," he replied. The house felt like a memory, quiet, clean but heavy with silence. Sarana showed him the guest room, then returned to her own space, saying little that night. Jack sat alone at the dinner table, eating slow and thinking hard. The boy didn't come out again, but Jack saw little signs: a tiny handprint on the wall, small shoes by the door, a drawing half finished on the table. He wanted to fix something, anything, so the next morning, he went outside and examined the broken windmill. He didn't ask permission, he just worked. Fixing things gave him peace, helped him think. By afternoon, he had repaired 2 blades and adjusted the gear shaft as he worked. He noticed a small shadow watching him from the porch. It was the boy Ryle, silent and still. Jack didn't speak, didn't wave, just kept working. After an hour, the boy came closer, step by step. Jack dropped a wrench on purpose, letting it roll toward the boy. Ryle picked it up slowly and walked over, handing it back without a word. Their fingers touched for a second. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Inside the house, Sarana watched from the window, her eyes unreadable. She saw something she hadn't seen in a long time. Not just a man fixing a windmill, but maybe, just maybe, someone fixing what was broken in their hearts too. But outside, Jack was starting to feel something else. A strange sense of being watched, not just by the boy, but by something unseen, something hiding in the distance. The windmill creaked, the boy stayed close, and Jack felt his old instincts whisper, this wasn't just a job. This was the beginning of something deep, and something dangerous. Jack stayed the night. Though his dreams were not peaceful, he lay on a soft but unfamiliar bed, listening to the strange hums of alien machines in the walls. The house creaked in the wind, but it was something else that made his skin crawl. He could hear soft tapping like metal scratching metal. Coming from somewhere behind the house, he told himself it was nothing, just old pipes or forgotten bots. But the sound repeated exactly every 15 minutes. Too perfect to be natural. In the morning, Sarana served breakfast without a word. The food was simple but warm, and Jack was thankful. The boy Rael sat across from him but didn't eat. He didn't even look up, just kept drawing lines on the wooden table with his finger. Jack tried to speak. "Morning." "Kid." Rael didn't reply, but his finger paused, just for a second, then kept moving. Sarana placed a cup near Jack and sat down as well. He used to be loud, she said quietly. Sang songs, told stories, even made his own jokes. Jack nodded, unsure what to say. Now, the boy was a ghost with a heartbeat. After breakfast, Jack decided to fix the outer fence. It was rusty, bent in places, and looked like it hadn't been touched since the last storm. He asked Sarana for tools, and she pointed him to the storage room. But when Jack opened the wrong door by accident, Sarana snapped. "Not that one," she said sharply. Rushing over to close it, inside he had seen only darkness and a red, blinking light from something large. "I keep the old machines in there," she added quickly. Avoiding his eyes, Jack didn't press her, but her panic stayed in his mind like a warning sign. He spent the day fixing the fence, feeling Ryle's eyes on him from the window. The boy never came outside but watched everything. By evening, the windmill began turning again. Creaking but alive, Jack smiled at it. It was a small victory. Sarana watched too, standing on the porch with her arms crossed. "You didn't have to fix all this," she said. "I offered you something else." Jack wiped his hands. "I fix things. It's what I do." Sarana nodded slowly, then added, "Maybe that's why you're here." Later that night, Jack sat alone in the small guest room, looking out the window. He saw a light blinking near the old barn at the back of the property. He leaned closer, but it disappeared. He grabbed a lantern and stepped outside quietly. The air was cold, the stars brighter than anything he'd seen on Earth. As he reached the barn, he heard the sound again. Metal tapping, slow and steady. He put his hand on the handle, but it was locked. Before he could decide what to do, a voice came from behind. "Don't open that," Sarana said, standing barefoot in the grass. Her eyes were darker now, full of shadows. "There are things inside that should stay quiet," she added. Jack stepped back. "I thought you said you stored machines there." "I did," she replied. "And some memories I wish I could forget." Jack didn't ask more, but he knew now. Something inside that barn wasn't just mechanical. Back inside, Reel was still awake. Sitting at the top of the stairs, Jack walked past him slowly, but the boy reached out and touched his sleeve. Jack looked down, surprised. Ryle looked up at him and mouthed a single word. "Run." The voice was barely a whisper, but it made Jack's blood go cold. He knelt down. But Ryle had already turned and ran back into the shadows. Sarana saw none of it, or at least pretended not to. That night, Jack didn't sleep. He sat in bed, holding a small repair tool like a weapon. He wasn't afraid of ghosts or monsters. He was afraid of secrets, and this house was full of them. At some point during the night, the tapping stopped. Everything went silent. Too silent. Jack peeked through the window again. The blinking light at the barn was off, but now there was a new light, faint and flickering. Coming from beneath the floorboards of the locked room Sarana had panicked about. He whispered to himself, "What the hell is in this house in the morning?" Sarana acted like nothing was wrong. She poured tea, asked about the fence, and said Ryle slept well. Jack didn't believe a word, but he stayed, because something deep inside him whispered that Ryle needed him. And maybe Sarana did too. But he also knew something else. He wasn't just fixing fences anymore. He was walking into a mystery that could break him, or change him forever. The morning light on Tarsus was pale and soft. Jack sat outside on a wooden bench, staring at the windmill he had repaired. It turned slowly in the breeze, squeaking with every spin. He should have felt proud, but something in his gut twisted like rusted wire. Ryle's whisper from last night echoed in his mind. One word that didn't make sense: run. Why would a child say that? And why at night? Sarana brought him a bowl of warm grain and sat beside him. "You've done more in 2 days than anyone has in a year," she said gently. Jack gave a small nod. "Just trying to earn my meals." She looked down, her fingers brushing the edge of the bowl. "You were a soldier once?" she asked. "No," Jack said quickly. "Just a builder." "Before everything went bad?" Sarana nodded. "We lost everything too." Her voice cracked just a little, but she held it together after breakfast. Jack started repairing the broken water pipe near the barn. He didn't ask for permission. He just did what he knew best. The barn loomed behind him, silent and locked. Still, he felt it, like eyes watching through the cracks in the wood. He wasn't alone out there, and he knew it. Every time the wind changed, the hair on his neck stood up as Jack worked. He noticed Ryle standing behind a tree, watching him again. This time, the boy held something, a small toy drone. Broken in half, Jack waved him over and knelt. Want me to fix it? Ryle looked unsure, then nodded once. Jack took the drone and sat on the ground, pulling tools from his belt. I had a nephew once, he said softly, not expecting an answer. Built him toys from scrap, flying ones, crawling ones. Ryle watched silently, eyes wide. Then, for the first time, the boy sat beside him. Knees in the dirt, he didn't speak. But he stayed close, closer than ever before. Later that evening, Serana came out with 2 cups of hot drink and sat across from Jack. You went near the barn again, she said. Not as a question, but a statement. Jack didn't deny it. I wanted to fix the water pipe, he said. Didn't open anything. Serana's eyes darkened, her fingers tightening around the cup. Don't go near that place again, she said firmly. There are things inside that aren't just broken. Jack leaned back. You mean your husband? Serana froze, then whispered. What do you know? Just enough to guess, Jack replied. Your boy warned me to run. And the barn, whatever's inside, makes strange sounds every night. Serana looked away, the pain in her face real and deep. He was injured in the war, she said slowly. Burned, broken, almost gone. They said he couldn't be saved, but I found someone. Jack frowned. Someone. A tech healer from the fringe colonies, she continued. They rebuilt him piece by piece, machine and flesh. Jack's chest tightened. You brought him back? Only part of him, she whispered. The rest didn't come back. He's alive, but not him anymore. And Ryle? Jack asked. Does he know? Serana nodded. He remembers the day it happened. That's when he stopped speaking. Jack looked at the barn again, the shadows around it thicker now. Why didn't you shut it down? He asked to turn off the machine. Serana looked broken now. Because he begged me not to. Because part of me still loves the man inside that metal shell. Just then, a loud clang echoed from the barn. Jack and Serana both stood, eyes wide. The locked door shuddered just once. Like something inside had moved, Ryle ran from the house crying. But not out loud. His mouth open in silence, tears running down his cheeks. Jack scooped him up without thinking, holding him close. The child trembled in his arms like a leaf in the wind. That night, Serana locked every door and sat in front of the fireplace, not speaking. Jack stayed awake with her, Ryle asleep on the couch beside them. You should leave, Serana said quietly. Jack shook his head. Not until I know the boy is safe. She looked at him, her voice cracking. You can't fix this. Jack, some things stay broken forever. Jack leaned forward, his eyes steady. I've fixed broken homes, broken machines and broken men, he said. Maybe I can't fix your husband, but I can give your boy something real. Outside, the barn made no noise, but Jack knew it was only a matter of time. The past was still alive, locked in that place, and soon it would want out. The next day began with a heavy sky. Clouds rolled over the village like a blanket of warning. Jack stood in the yard, staring at the barn door. It didn't shake this time, but the silence felt even worse than the noise. Ryle clung to his side, one hand gripping Jack's shirt tightly. Serana watched them from the window, her face pale, her eyes tired. She had stopped pretending things were normal now. Jack couldn't ignore the truth anymore. There was something inside the barn, something once called a husband, a father, a man, but now it was something else. Jack looked at Ryle and saw fear in his eyes, but also a quiet question. The boy wanted to understand what had become of his real father and Jack. He needed answers, too. That evening, while Serana cooked in the kitchen, Jack took a risk. He slipped out quietly. With a tool bag in hand, he approached the barn with slow steps, every crunch of gravel underfoot sounding like thunder. The lock on the door was alien-made, advanced, but Jack had learned a lot in his travels. He took out a slim tool and worked silently, his hand steady. In under a minute, the lock clicked open. The door creaked as it moved, revealing darkness and cold metal air. Jack stepped inside, lantern in hand. Rows of dusty machines lined the walls, blinking faintly with red and blue lights. Cables snaked across the floor like vines, humming with faint energy. In the center stood a tall metal frame, and in it, a shape suspended in a web of wires and tubes. Jack froze, breath caught in his throat. It was a man, or used to be. Now he was part machine, part flesh, half of his face covered in steel. One eye was still human, bloodshot and tired. The other was a glowing red lens that blinked slowly. like it was waking from sleep. "Who's there?" The voice was broken. Rough like grinding gears, Jack stepped forward. "My name is Jack," he said. "I'm helping your family." The machine man coughed. A strange sound of metal rattling inside lungs. "Helping," he repeated. "She found someone." Then, Jack swallowed hard. "She didn't plan this. I came looking for work," the man chuckled. The sound painful. "I was a soldier," he said. "They said I'd die." Serana refused. She begged them to save me. And this is what they gave her back. Jack looked at the wires. The rust. The pain etched in the man's face. "Why are you still here?" he asked quietly. "I begged her to shut me down," the man whispered. "She couldn't." Suddenly, Ryle's voice echoed from outside the barn. "Jack," he called softly. "Where are you?" Jack panicked, rushing to the door. "Stay outside, Ryle," he shouted. But the boy was already near, eyes wide as he stepped into the shadows. He looked at the machine man and froze. The man's red eye locked onto him. "Ryle," he said. "My son." Ryle trembled, then did something unexpected. He stepped closer, slowly, and touched the machine's cold hand. "You came," the machine whispered. "You remember me." Tears rolled down the boy's face, and he nodded. Jack stood back, unsure what to do. This wasn't just a broken machine. It was a broken family. Serana arrived moments later. Breathless, her face pale. "What have you done?" she cried, rushing to Ryle. But the boy held onto the machine's hand, unwilling to let go. "He's not angry," Ryle said softly. His voice shaking, Serana stopped, stunned. "You spoke," she whispered. Ryle nodded again. "He's not angry anymore. But he's tired." The machine man looked at Serana. "I told you," he said. "Let me go." Serana fell to her knees, her heart breaking all over again. Jack stepped forward, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Maybe it's time," he said gently. Serana sobbed, but finally nodded. That night, the family sat together one last time. The machine man, once a warrior, a father, a husband, smiled weakly. "I was scared to die, but more scared to forget you," he said. "You kept me alive, but now I remember and I can rest." Jack helped Serana power down the system slowly. Light by light, wire by wire, Ryle stayed close, holding his father's hand until the last hum faded, and the barn fell into silence again. They buried the man in the garden. Under the turning windmill, the wind blew gently, and the stars above shone down like old friends. Jack held Ryle's hand and Serana leaned against him. They were no longer broken strangers. They were starting to become something else. A family not by blood but by choice, and the man in the machine had given them that gift. The garden was quiet after the burial. A simple stone marked the grave beneath the windmill. No grand words, no long speeches. Just silence, wind, and 3 hearts trying to heal. Ryle placed a toy drone on the stone. One Jack had repaired. Serana said nothing. But her hand stayed in Jack's for a long time, for the first time. She let someone hold her without pulling away. That night, they lit a fire inside the house and sat close together. Ryle dozed on Jack's shoulder. Tired from tears, Serana looked at Jack. Her eyes soft but full of questions. "You could leave now," she said. "You've done more than enough." Jack stared into the fire, then shook his head. "Leaving feels wrong," he replied. "This place, it feels like it's trying to be alive again." Serana looked down, her voice barely a whisper. "So are we." The next few days passed in calm work. Jack repaired the barn roof and cleaned out the storage rooms. Ryle followed him everywhere now, carrying tools, asking small questions, smiling more each day. The boy even laughed once when Jack slipped on a bucket and landed in mud. Serana watched all this from the porch, a quiet joy slowly blooming on her face. But peace never stays long in places touched by the past. One afternoon, as Jack and Ryle worked near the old tool shed, they heard a loud bang from the barn that was supposed to be shut down. Jack ran to it with Ryle close behind, inside. They found the central machine cold but not silent. A red warning light blinked rapidly on the back wall. The screen displayed a single message over and over. "Reboot sequence error. Manual override in 72 hours. Jack's heart dropped. He checked the wires, the power core, everything. Serana came rushing in moments later, her face drained of color. "I disconnected it," she whispered. "I swear I shut it all down." Jack pointed to the backup cell hidden behind the panel. Someone rebuilt a second power source. They looked at Ryle. who backed away, shaking his head. "I didn't touch anything," he whispered. Frightened. "I believe him," Jack said. This was automatic, some kind of delayed restart. Serana grabbed Jack's arm, her fingers tight. "If it reboots fully, I don't know what will come back," she said. "It won't be him." Jack, not even a piece of him. Jack stared at the countdown flashing on the screen. 71 hours. 59 minutes, I'll destroy it, he said. Before it finishes. But Ryle stepped forward and said, "Wait." They turned to the boy, surprised. "I want to say goodbye again," he said quietly. Serana knelt in front of him. "You already did." Ryle shook his head. "That was the soft part of him. I want to look at the hard part, the dark part, and still say goodbye." Jack's chest tightened at the boy's words. He wasn't just a child anymore. He was growing, learning to face pain, not run from it. That night, while Serana slept restlessly, Jack sat outside with Ryle under the stars. The boy leaned against him and whispered, "If you were my real dad, would you be scared?" Jack looked at the stars and replied, "I'd be scared all the time, Ryle. But I'd still stand in front of you when things got bad." The next day, Jack spent hours preparing. He built a shutdown spike, a tool that could fry the machine's core instantly, but it could only be used once and it would destroy everything inside. Data, memory, all of it. No coming back this time. When the timer hit 12 hours, Jack, Serana, and Ryle stood in the barn. The machine pulsed faintly, lights flickering like a heartbeat. "I'll do it," Jack said, raising the spike, but Ryle stopped him. "I want to say the words first." The boy stepped forward, stood in front of the machine and whispered, "I'm not afraid of you anymore. You're not my father now, but you were, and I remember the good parts." Then he turned and walked back to Jack. Tears in his eyes. "I'm ready," he said. Jack raised the spike one more time, but before he could strike, Serana touched his hand. "Let me," she said. "I kept him alive this long. It should be me who lets him go." Jack handed her the tool silently. Serana walked forward, pressed the spike into the core, and whispered, "I love you, but it's time." The lights blinked, sputtered, and died. The barn fell silent, and this time, the silence felt final. Outside, the windmill turned slowly in the breeze. Jack, Serana, and Ryle stood together in the sunlight. A choice had been made, not just to end something old, but to begin something new. The barn no longer hummed. It no longer blinked, groaned, or watched. It stood like an empty shell, cold and still. Jack stood at its open doorway, staring at the dark machine within, now lifeless. Serana had destroyed the last spark of her husband's body, and in doing so she had freed something too, herself. Ryle, and maybe even Jack's smoke had risen briefly when the shutdown spike did its job. Then silence came, not the heavy kind full of fear, but a clean one like the end of a storm, or the last page of a sad book. Ryle held Jack's hand tightly as they walked away. He didn't cry and he didn't speak much either. But his steps were steady, not scared anymore. Serana locked the barn door and dropped the key into a deep well near the garden. It was her way of saying goodbye forever. She didn't look back once. Jack watched her from the side, feeling a strange warmth for this woman who had carried so much pain. She didn't need saving. She had saved herself. That evening, the three of them sat by the fire again. No words were needed for a while. Ryle curled up beside Serana, his head on her lap, eyes half closed. Jack sat across from them, his hands rough, his heart soft. Serana looked at him and gave a small smile. Real this time. It wasn't wide, but it was honest. "You're still here," she said softly. Jack nodded. "I don't have anywhere else I'd rather be." She brushed Ryle's hair gently. "Neither do we." The next morning, the sun felt brighter somehow. Birds, small, glass-feathered creatures native to Tarsus, returned to the trees. Jack began working again, but now it was different. Not to survive, not to earn his keep, but to build something real. He repaired the porch roof, cleaned the garden paths, and planted seeds with Ryle. The boy had started speaking more now. Not many words, but enough to show healing. He asked questions about tools, planets, engines, and even Earth. Jack answered everyone with patience. He saw himself in the boy, curious, quiet, and carrying scars that needed time to fade. One afternoon, a messenger drone from the nearby village buzzed to the door. Serana opened it and took a small scroll. It was an invitation, something rare and serious. The village council wanted to speak with Jack. They had heard rumors of the human helping the widow and her boy. And they were curious. Serana looked nervous. They don't usually welcome outsiders, she said. Jack shrugged. Then I'll go and make them regret it nicely. She smiled again. This time with a spark in her eyes. The next day, Jack rode a small solar cart into the village. Ryle begged to come, so they went together. The town was a mix of stone homes and crystal towers. Alien tech blended with old ways. The council hall was tall, narrow, and full of eyes watching them. Inside, the elders listened as Jack explained his work, his reason for staying. He didn't hide anything, not the machine, not the shutdown, not the risk, but he also told them what happened after. How Ryle smiled again, how Serana breathed easier, how peace had returned. The room was silent for a long time. Then one elder stood. We feared you at first. Human, she said, but perhaps fear is no longer needed. They offered Jack a job, not just to repair machines, but to train others. Share his hands and heart? Jack thought for a moment, then shook his head politely. My work is here now, he said. With them, back at the house, Serana waited on the porch when Jack returned. Ryle ran ahead laughing. Serana rose and asked, Did they welcome you? Jack smiled and replied, I said no. She raised an eyebrow, but he added, Because I've already been welcomed where it matters. That night, they had dinner together like a family. They laughed when Jack dropped a spoon. They listened as Ryle tried to tell a story, forgetting half the words but smiling anyway. The house, once full of shadows, now breathed like a living thing. Jack stood outside under the stars later, looking up at the sky he once wanted to escape. He had traveled light years looking for work, but what he found was heavier and more precious. Not just a job, not just shelter, but a place to belong. The windmill turned slowly behind him, the same one he had fixed on his first day. He smiled because now it wasn't turning out of need. It was turning out of hope, and deep inside the house a boy slept peacefully, while a mother, no longer a widow, watched the door, knowing she was no longer alone. Months passed on the quiet plains of Tarsus. The winds were softer now, the skies clearer, and in the house with the turning windmill, things had changed, not with noise or force, but with quiet moments. The kind of moments that build something real, something lasting. Jack woke early every day, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. He fixed things around the house, not for pay, but for love. The broken porch was now strong, the garden bloomed with alien flowers, and the water pipe no longer leaked. But the biggest change wasn't in the wood or metal. It was in Ryle. The boy no longer hid behind curtains or whispered his words. Now he ran through the fields, climbed trees, and laughed so loud the neighbors could hear. He still missed his father, of course, but now he remembered him with peace, not fear. Sometimes he even told stories about how brave his real dad was and how kind his new one had become. Serana had changed too. Her eyes were softer now. Not weighed down by shadows, she walked with calm steps and spoke with warmth. She had always been strong, but now she wasn't carrying it alone. One warm evening they sat outside. Watching the stars rise one by one, Ryle leaned against Jack. Sleepy but smiling, Serana sat close, her hand brushing Jack's just once. No words were said, but none were needed. Everything important was already known. The next day, something strange happened. A large shuttle landed just outside the village, its silver frame glowing in the sun. From it stepped a group of Earth officials, clean uniforms and serious eyes. Jack's name had finally caught up to the records. They had tracked him through the colonies, looking for workers, or wanderers, or anyone lost in the outer systems. Jack met them at the edge of the village. Ryle by his side, one of the officers stepped forward, holding a data slate. You're Jack Mason, he said. You haven't checked in for 2 years? Jack nodded slowly. I wasn't lost, he replied. I just found something better. The officer raised an eyebrow. You've been working here? Helping aliens? Jack smiled. Helping a family. They offered him transport back to Earth. New contracts, even bonus pay. Jack looked back toward the house where Serana stood watching, and Ryle waved a stick like it was a sword. Then he turned to the officers and said, No, this is home now. The men didn't argue, but they left puzzled. To them, it was just a broken farm on a forgotten world, but to Jack, it was the only place he'd ever truly belonged. That night, Ryle asked him, Why didn't you go back to Earth? Jack lifted him onto his lap and said, Because I already have what I was looking for. Ryle smiled sleepily. You were looking for me? Jack nodded. Yes. And your mom too, he added, giving Serana a glance that made her look away with a smile. Seasons passed and the village changed too. More humans started visiting, learning that not all alien homes were dangerous. They saw the windmill house and the family that lived in it. And word spread about a man who didn't run, a woman who let go, and a boy who found his voice again one day. A small ceremony was held near the barn, not to remember pain, but to honor healing. They placed a new stone next to the old grave. It didn't have a name, only a sentence carved deep into it. Forgiven. Remembered, released, years later. When Ryle grew older, he told the story again and again, not just of the machine in the barn, but of the human who came looking for a job. A man who knocked on a door asking for work and was told instead, I need a father. He told that story with pride, with tears and always with love because that man stayed, and became what none of them knew they needed. Not a builder, not a soldier, not just a helper, but a father, a friend, and a new beginning. And the house with the windmill never stood empty again. Its blades turned every day, not because they had to, but because something was always moving there. Hope, love, and the memory of a man who chose them. A family not made by blood but by choice, and that choice changed everything.